So this should be
Oh
interesting.
no, I'm a big believer in console generations. Once every 5 or 6 or 7 years, a console arrives with substantially new capabilities. There's a
This
lot
is
more
going to be the
variety in
driest
graphics,
talk.
hopefully not
I
nearly as slow,
swear.
and soon there's games that
I
we've never
don't even
even
understand
dreamed
why
of.
they're doing it this way.
Now, it used to be that as a console designer, you'd somehow intuit what would be the best set of capabilities for your new console, and then build it in complete secrecy. For the PlayStation consoles, that period lasted through PlayStation 3, a powerful and groundbreaking console, but also one that caused quite a lot of heartache as it was initially difficult to develop games for. So, starting with PlayStation 4, we've taken a different approach, roughly centered around three principles.
Are you serious?
The first of these is listening to the developers, which is to say that a
It's like a
lot
PowerPoint
of the
presentation.
console derives directly from the needs and
Oh
aspirations
man.
of the game creators. We definitely do have some ideas of our own, but at the core of our philosophy for designing consoles is that game players are here for the fantastic games, which is to say that game creators matter. Anything we can do to make life easier for the game creators or help them realize their dreams, we will do. So, about once every 2 years, I take a tour of the industry. I go to the various developers and publishers, sit down, and discuss how they're doing with the current consoles and what they'd like to see in future consoles. This requires weeks on the road, as reaching the bulk of the game creators involves talking to well over 100 people at something like 24 publishers and developers. And it is incredibly valuable. By the way, the feature most requested by the developer, that was an SSD, which we were very happy to put in the hardware, but a lot of problem solving was required. I'll be doing a deep dive on the SSD. And
Are you serious? This is the talk that they're talking. Like this is
it's
so
also trying to
dry.
make a generational leap. Well,
Is
keeping
this
the
for
console
devs? I know this is
as
supposed to be a
familiar as
talk for
possible. Think
from
about this in
GDC,
terms
but
of
come
balance,
on. If you're gonna
evolution,
make it
and
public, like
evolution. Now, with PlayStation 1, 2, and 3, the target was a revolutionary
right,
time
Eddie,
with
this is
brand new
ridiculous.
features.
I don't even know what's
That was
going on.
great in many ways,
They
but
literally
time
brought
for
out Andy
developers to
Dick.
get up
I
and running
mean,
got longer with each year. In the
Mark
past, we
Cerny
called this time
to
to
tell us
market.
about. But
Here's what I
we're just
have
gonna
in
go
terms of
step by
time.
step on a PowerPoint.
To
This
be
is how
clear,
it's gonna
I'm not
happen.
talking about time to make a game. Developers will be ambitious, and it may take them 6 years or
I
so to realize their vision. What I'm talking about is that dead time before graphics and other aspects of game development are up and running, and trying to minimize that. On the other hand, if we're trying to reduce that dead time to zero, that means the hardware architecture can't change at all. We're handcuffed. We need to judge for each feature what value it adds and whether it's worth the increase in developer time needed to support it. So with PlayStation 4, we were able to strike a pretty good balance between performance and familiarity.
That's
We got
because you went to
required learning back
x86.
to PlayStation 1 levels.
You didn't have to jump
With
through
PS5,
hurdles trying to
the
develop
GPU
for a
was
whole
definitely
new
the area
architecture.
we felt the most tension between adding new features and keeping a familiar programming model. Ultimately, I think we've ended up with something under a month of getting up to speed. That feels like we're striking about the right balance. I'll go into a bit more detail later today about our philosophy with the GPU and the specific feature set.
Later today? How long is this?
It's also very important for us, as the hardware team, to find new dreams, by which I mean something other than CPU performance, GPU performance, and the amount of RAM. The increase in graphics performance over the past 2 decades has been astonishing, but there are other areas
Holy
in which we
moly.
can innovate and provide significant value to the game creators, and through them, to the players. That's why the SSD was very much on our list of directions to explore, regardless of what came out of the conversations with game developers and publishers. The biggest feature in this category is the custom engine for audio. That's today's final topic. The push for vastly improved audio, and in particular, 3D audio.
You're not
isn't
missing
something that
much,
came out of the
Jordan.
development meeting.
It's
much more the case that
the
we are
driest thing.
dreaming of
He's
what
literally
might
standing
be
at a
possible
podium.
5 years from now, and then worked out a number of steps we could take to set us on that path.
I don't.
So here again are the 3 principles. The first being enabling the desires of developers to drive the hardware design. To me, the SSD really is the key to the next generation. It's a game
Thank you
changer. And it was the number
talking
one
about
ask from
SSDs. They've only been
developers
around
for PlayStation 5. As in, we know it's
the
probably
industry for the
impossible,
past
but can you put an SSD?
10 years, 5 years now.
That
5 years
was
has
a
been the.
discussion we were also having
We've been
internally.
using
It was
SSD.
clear that the presence of a hard drive in every PlayStation 4 was having a positive impact. A lot of things that would simply have been impossible at Blu-ray disc speeds were now possible. At the same time, though, in
This
2015
is-
and 2016, when we were having these conversations, developers were already banging up against the limits of the hard drive. And a lot of developer time was being spent designing around slow load speeds. I want to focus in on just one number here, which is how long it takes to load a gigabyte of data from a hard drive. The difficulty being that hard drives are neither particularly fast nor flexible. If all your data is in one block, which is frankly not very likely, you can load 50 to 100 megabytes a second, depending on where the data is located on the hard drive. Let's assume it's on the outer edge, which means loading a gigabyte takes 10 seconds. If you compress your game packages, you can fit more data on the Blu-ray disc and also effectively boost your hard drive read speed by the compression ratio. We support
Mark,
Z-Link
I get it.
compression on
I get it.
PS4.
You're
That gets you
technical.
something
This is
like
this is
50%
good, but
more
this is
data
something that you
reduced
put up
and
online
50%
after it.
higher effective.
People want to know. You're
Unfortunately,
oh
with
Jesus!
highly
I can't even
lightweight
comprehend
data scattered
Sony's
around in various files on
and
the
Sony's winning this
as well
war.
as
Like
sources
Sony
from
is
multiple
is
locations within
is
those
supposed to be
files.
like
So
the top
lots
notch.
of
I don't
sticks are needed
even
at 2 to
understand what they're
50
doing right now.
milliseconds each. My rule of thumb is that the hard drive is spending
I am-
two-thirds of its time seeking, and only a third
I'm so
of its time
confused.
actually loading data.
So
Putting all of that
confused.
together, a gigabyte is very roughly 20 seconds to load from a hard drive. Now, a gigabyte is not
I said
in
Dana
terms of
Carvey
5 or
slash
6 gigabytes of RAM.
slash
Of course, boot times and load times
Andy Dick. But no, it's Mark Cerny. I mean, Mark Cerny is fantastic. He's a great. I mean, he's the reason the PlayStation 4 is where it is. But this isn't the way you do this. This is supposed to be the GDC talk.
For what is euphemistically called fast travel, and all of that.
Oh my.
What if we could have not just an SSD, but a blindingly fast SSD? If we could load 5
You mean-
gigabytes a second.
You know how Microsoft talked about this? They said we partnered with Seagate. We let them kind of design this thing. Here it is, and they showed
If you
you.
have a 5
the-
gigabyte
oh
second
my God,
SSD,
this is
you can read data from 1,000 different
ridiculous.
locations in that second, pretty much at speed. As for time to load a gigabyte, this is next gen we're talking about. So memory is big.
Oh, geez,
Instead,
next
we
gen.
should
Let's
ask
keep using the
how
term.
long to load 2 gigabytes. And the answer is about a quarter of a second. I mean, that's amazing. We're talking 2 orders of magnitude, meaning very roughly 100 times faster.
Yes.
Which means
Wow.
at 5 gigabytes a second for the SSD, the potential is that the game boots in a second. There are no load screens. The game just fades down while loading a half dozen gigabytes and fades back up again. Same for a reload. You're immediately back in the action after you die. And
This is what they're showing. Look at that screen. It's so fast.
As
It's like
game
they
creators
looked
go
up
from trying to
fast.
distract the player from how long fast travel is taking, like those Spider-Man subway rides, to being so blindingly fast that we might even have to slow that down.
By the way, if you haven't noticed, both companies so far have referenced games from this gen. Like Gears of War was shown, and now he's talking about subway scenes in Spider-Man, which means that this isn't new gen is not new gen. This is all about like, hey,
the 20 seconds it takes
I
to
don't-
load a gigabyte can
they
sabotage
literally went on Google Images and typed in fast and found like an animated GIF.
Almost all of us in the room have experienced this.
Ooh,
maybe
here we
in
go.
different
Theoretical
ways.
game.
Say we're making an adventure game, and we have 2 rich
An adventure
environments
game.
where we each want enough textures and models to fill memory. Which you can do as long as you have a long staircase or elevator ride or a windy corridor where you can ditch the
This
old assets.
is
and then
going
take
to be
30 seconds
memed
to load the new
to
assets.
death.
Having a 30-second elevator
Haley, that's right. You're gonna fall
more
asleep. It's
realistically, we'd probably chop the world into a number of smaller pieces and then do some calculations with sight lines and run speeds like we did for Haven City when we were making Jack 2.
oh,
The game
thank
was
you.
20
Let's
years
reference
old,
a
but
PlayStation
nothing
2
has
game.
changed since then.
I know
All
that
those twisted
Mark,
packages
you
are
are in charge of
There's
Zach's.
a whole
Oh,
subset of level design dedicated to this sort of work. But
this
still,
isn't the
it's
time and place to talk about this.
abstract
You
dream
you
that
literally
just
did a
wants
call to
to be
arms.
there.
This is your response to
So
Microsoft?
when I talked about the dream,
Microsoft invited the press to take apart their machine and was like, here it is, here's what it does, here's how fast it does. Everyone made short videos. Sony does this, and they just like
what if
pull
the
out the
SSD is
PowerPoint.
so fast that as the player is turning around, it's possible to load textures for everything behind the player in that split second. If you figure that it takes half a second to turn, that's 4 gigabytes of compressed data you can load. That sounds about right for next gen. Anyway, back to the hard drive. Another
Oh,
strategy
yeah, let's
for
go back to hard
increasing
drive.
effective read speed is
How
to
hard
make
drives
streaming
work, yes.
sequential chunks of data. For example, we might group all the data together for each city block. That
Zero,
removes
this
most
is
of the
interesting,
queues,
for sure.
and the streaming gets faster. But there's a downside too, which is that frequently used data is included in many chunks and therefore is on the hard drive many, many times.
We get colored
Marvel's
blocks.
Spider-Man
Is that a
uses
Windows
this
logo?
strategy, and though it
That
works
looks like a
very
Windows
well
logo,
for
guys.
increasing the streaming speed. There's a massive duplication as a result. Some of the objects like mailboxes or news racks are on the hard drive 400 times. What I'm describing here are things that cramp a creative director's style. Either level design gets a little bit boring in places, or the data
Like
is
this talk.
duplicated so many times that it no longer fits on the Blu-ray disc. And you end up with hard limits on the player's run speed or driving speed. The player can't go faster than the load speed from the hard drive. And finally, I'm sure many of you
Developers
have
can
noticed that after a
code
patch,
around that.
PlayStation
What are
4
you
will take
talking
a long
about?
time to install.
Are you just trying to tell me that SSDs are faster? Because we've known this. This is information from 2011. We've known that solid-state drives were faster and give better write speed and read speed to systems. It's Sony that chose to go hard drive on PlayStation 4 and 3 and didn't go SSD. People were swapping in solid-state drives into the PlayStation 4 on day one.
SSD though, no seeks. So no need to make brand new files with the changes.
Zero, the memes are going to be glorious. This is their response. This is their response to Microsoft.
There's yet one more benefit.
Oh.
Is that system memory can be used.
Memory. We've moved to memory, guys.
On PlayStation 4, game data on the hard drive feels very distant and difficult to use. By the time you realize you need a piece of data, it's much too late to go out and load it. So system memory has to contain all of the data that could be used in the next 30 seconds or so of gameplay. That means a lot of the 8 gigabytes of system memory is idle. It's just waiting there to be potentially used.
Wow.
PlayStation 5, though, the
16 gigs of memory. All right.
More RAM. Typically, it's fast enough that when you realize you need a piece of data, you can just
Right.
load it from the
It's bizarre.
SSD.
It's super
No
tech, but
need to
he's
have lots of
explaining
data.
foundational
Memory waiting.
fundamentals to developers. This is at the beginning of the talk. If you just tuned in, he said that they canceled the GDC talk, so this was going to be the GDC talk. But these are developers. They know how memory works. They know about speed. They know the limitations of the system already. So tell me what the new system has. Why are you giving me a TED talk on how memory and oh, here we go, fast.
Here's the set of targets. Boot the game in a second. No load screens. Design freedom, meaning no twisty passages or long corridors. More game on the disk and more game on the SSD. And finally, those patch installs go away. The reality, though, is that the SSD is just
Oh my God,
one piece of the puzzle.
this
There's
this
a lot of
PowerPoint
places
gives me
where
life.
mechanics
I can't wait for them to replace these
in the
images.
game code that uses it.
Decompression,
You can see
coherency,
this in
mapping.
PlayStation 4. If I use an SSD with 10 times the speed of a standard hard drive, I probably see only double the loading speed, if that. For PlayStation 5, our goal was not just that the
Hold on,
SSD
let me
itself
play my
would be
Vita real quick while you're doing
faster.
this.
It was that game loads and streaming would be 100 times faster. So every single potential bottleneck needed to be addressed. And there are a lot of them. Let's look at check-in and what happens when its overhead gets 100 times larger. Conceptually, check-in is a pretty simple process.
I don't know, Haley. I don't know if it's filler or not. They have. They're not gonna do what Microsoft did, right? Like I talked about this on the show last night. Is Microsoft showed up. They showed you the system. The first thing they did was like they brought in the press and they're like, here's the system. Take it apart. Hold the hardware. This is what it looks like. Here are the specifications. Also, here are the tech specs. Here's what we're doing. Here's the SSD. But they did it so fast that it kept my attention. What are they doing here? Oh, custom flash controller. Here we go. I talked about this last night. I eat my hat if they didn't do Sony proprietary nonsense. So what's the name of this? What's the name of this custom flash controller?
6 levels of priority when reading from the SSD. Priority is very important. You can imagine the player heading into some new location in the world and the game requesting a few gigabytes of textures. And while those textures are being loaded, an enemy is shot and has to speak a few dying words. Having multiple priority levels lets the audio for those dying words get loaded immediately. On one side, that flash.
But you have 16 gigs of memory that you can cache. You've got memory cache has always existed. You can always cache a majority part of the level. If you know you're in a specific level, games have always been smart enough to cache certain spots or certain things into memory. I don't understand. This isn't anything new for developers.
The most natural size that emerges for an
Smart game developers have always been able to work around the limits of the hardware. So what are you telling me here?
I mean, it's tempting to add more, but Flash certainly doesn't come cheap, and we have a responsibility to our gaming audience to be cost-effective with regards to what we put in the console. Ultimately, we resolved this question by looking at the play patterns of a broad range of gamers. We examined the specific games that they were playing over the course of a weekend or a week or a month, and whether that set of games would fit.
Jordan, you're absolutely right. Predictions from 3 hours ago. It'll be dry and technical. There will be some weirdness in the final numbers of GPU teraflops. Will make console warriors sad.
825 gigabyte size. Well, also
I don't understand, Zero. Dana I think it's Dana Carvey, Andy Dick, right? Are we gonna run with Dana Carvey because of the hair? Because he's very also Andy Dick.
It connects to our main custom chip via 4 lanes of Gen 4 PCIe, and inside the main custom chip,
we no longer have to be smart to be a developer.
Before we talk about what that does,
oh God,
let's talk compression.
Agreed, Pedro. This is
PlayStation 4
gold.
used zlib as its compression format. We decided to use it again on PlayStation 5.
Okay, fair enough. That's because it's the same system with more teraflops
About a new format
and an SSD.
Kraken from Rad Game Tools.
Oh, Kraken.
Like
Is this does this count?
Cousin. Simple, similar types of
Is this a Sony proprietary thing?
10% better compression, which is pretty big. That means 10% more game on a UHD Blu-ray disc or on the SSD. Kraken had only been out for a year, but it was already becoming a de facto industry standard.
Okay, industry standard. So it's not proprietary. It's industry standard. So Kraken doesn't count. I'm waiting for them to use the first Sonyism.
Custom decompressor into the I/O unit, one capable of handling over 5 gigabytes of Kraken format input data a second. After decompression,
Mark must be great at parties.
or 9 gigabytes.
He just must walk into a room and everyone's like, crap. Mark is here. I gotta go to the restroom real quick. I can't imagine him.
By the way, in terms of performance, that custom decompressor equates to 9 of our Zen 2 cores. That's what it would take to decompress the Kraken stream with a conventional CPU.
Oh my God.
There's a lot more in the custom I/O unit.
Tell me more.
A dedicated DMA controller. The game can direct exactly where it wants to send the data coming off of
Thank
the
you.
SSD.
Yes.
This
Custom.
equates to
Yes.
another Zen 2 core.
Another?
In terms
No.
of its copy performance.
You don't say.
Its primary purpose is to remove check-in as a bottleneck.
That's amazing.
There's 2 dedicated I/O coprocessors.
Okay. Yes. Two.
These
Guys,
aren't
there's
things
2 dedicated
they're there
coprocessors.
principally to direct the variety of custom hardware around them. One of the coprocessors is dedicated to SSD I/O. This lets us bypass traditional file I/O and its bottlenecks when
Amazing.
from the SSD. The other is responsible for memory mapping, which I know doesn't sound like anything related to the SSD, but a lot of developers.
Oh,
map
yes,
the
look at this
memory
person.
memory
Yes,
as
I-
part of file I/O, and these 2 can become a bundle. There are coherency engines to assist the coprocessors. Coherency comes up a lot in places. Probably
Something we don't have in this talk. Coherency.
the GPU caches. Flushing all of the GPU caches whenever the SSD is read is an unattractive option. It could really hurt the GPU performance. So
It's
we've
very
invented
unattractive.
A gentler way of doing things, where the coherency engines inform the GPU of the overwritten address ranges, and custom scrubbers in several dozen GPU caches do pinpoint evictions of just those address ranges. The best thing is, as a
Wow.
when you read from the SSD, you don't need to know any of this. You don't even need to know.
No, sure. I get that it's a nice
You just
bit, Jordan.
indicate
It's
what
fantastic.
data
It's
you want to use
a
in your original
great
uncompressed
bit of
file, where
information.
you'd like to put it.
It didn't have to be done right now
Loading
live.
it in
This is something that could have been put in a video and then put on their website for developers.
Back to the Dream. Thanks to
Someone-
all of that
he
surrounding
needed
hardware,
editing
our 5.5
bad.
gigabytes a second really should translate into something like 100 times faster I/O than PS4, and allow the dream of no load screens and super fast streaming to become a
All of this is just to tell
Having
me
said
that the
expanding
PS5
scaling
is
of our SSD
fast.
Is going to be quite important. Flash is costly, and you may very well want to add storage to whatever we put in the console. Now, the kind of storage you need depends on how you're going to use it. If you
Okay,
have
so
an extensive PlayStation 4 library and you'd like to take advantage of backwards compatibility to play those games on
so he's
PlayStation
just
5,
told us that it's
then a
backwards
large
compatible
external hard
without
drive
actually
inside
saying
you.
that it's backwards
You
compatible.
can leave your games on the hard drive and play them directly from there, thus saving the price.
So
of your
Xbox
SSD storage
did
on
this too.
PlayStation
They're
5.
telling you that
Or
you can't
can
load
copy
new
and attach the
PlayStation 5
4
games on the
titles
external
to
hard drive.
SSD. If your purpose in adding more storage is to play PlayStation 5 titles, though, ideally you would add to your SSD storage. We will be supporting certain M2 SSDs. These are internal drives that you can get on the open market and install in a bay in the PlayStation 5.
This is good information.
Ones we support, and when, I'll get to that in a moment. They connect through the custom I/O unit, just like our SSD does. So they can take full advantage of the decompression, I/O coprocessors, and all the other features I was talking about. Here's the catch, though. That commercial drive has to be at least as fast as ours. Games that rely on the speed of our SSD need to work flawlessly with any M2 drive. When I gave the Wired interview last year, I said that the
No, Eddie. So it looks like they're going to go with open market M2 drives, which are, I don't know about promises yet. This is all just talking about how fast things load.
In other words,
this talk is,
no PCIe 3.0
I don't know.
can hit the required spec. M2 drives with PCIe 4.0 are now out in the market. We're getting samples and seeing
so with
4 or 5 gigabytes.
This could have been done in a graphic by telling you, hey, it comes with a solid state that we're providing. If you want to upgrade, you just need a solid state that matches our specs. So compatibility.
We are comparing apples and oranges, though, because that commercial M2 drive will have its own architecture, its own flash controller, and so on. For example, the NVMe specification lays out a priority scheme for requests that the M2 drives can use. And that scheme is pretty nice, but it only has 2 true priority levels. Our drive supports 6. We can hook up a drive with only 2 priority
So
levels.
our drives are
But
better.
our custom I/O unit has to arbitrate the extra priorities rather than the M2 drive's flash controller. And so the M2 drive needs a little extra speed to take care of issues arising from the different approach. That commercial drive also needs to physically fit inside of the bay we created in PlayStation 5.
How about you show us that bay?
Unlike internal hard drives, there's unfortunately no standard for the height of an M2 drive, and some M2 drives have giant heat sinks. In fact, some of them even have their own fans. Right now, we're getting M2 drive samples and
The crowd is probably cardboard
when
cutouts, for
games
sure.
hit beta as they get ready for the PlayStation
Or they're
5
asleep.
launch at year-end, we'll also be doing
Or
some
they've been shot.
compatibility testing to make sure that the architecture of particular M2 drives isn't too foreign for the games to handle. Once we've done that compatibility testing, we should be able to start letting you know which drives
Like Donald Trump.
and which drives
I
have
don't
the
know.
best
He's using way bigger
performance.
words, way bigger words than
It would
than
be
Donald
great
Trump.
if that happened by
I mean,
launch, but it's likely to
let's
be a bit
let's
delayed.
not.
So
I won't give Mark Cerny a disservice here. His intellect is up here, but he's talking.
back to our principles.
He's
Balancing
up here and he's
evolution
talking
and
like we're down
revolution
here.
is the second of them. This was definitely a recurring theme with the GPU. We need new GPU features and capabilities. If
All right, so now we're
we
talking about the
have
graphics.
More performance. It's not really a new generation of console. Of course, many of these capabilities result in more performance. That's part of why a PlayStation 5 teraflop is more powerful than a
Tell me if anyone moves
teraflop. But we
in the
aren't just
crowd.
looking for
The guy in the front
performance.
seems to be
Also need
breathing
the
for
ability
sure,
to do something with the GPU that could not have been done before.
right?
And we need higher performance per watt. Every time we double the performance of some GPU component, we don't want to find out we've doubled the power consumed.
No,
and
he moved.
reduced. But at the same time, we have to make sure the GPU can run PS4 games, and we have to ensure that the architecture is easy for the developers.
But this
to
is like saying that my
Now,
graphics card right now
compatibility
in my
and
computer
management
can't play a
of
game that I bought 2
they
years ago
treated it as a key need throughout
because I
the
bought it
design
today.
process.
That's
As our
backwards
solution added new
compatibility.
features
You're
without
on
forcing
x86
development,
architecture.
We made sure that
You-
if there were new significant features, it would be optional to use them. The GPU supports ray tracing, but you don't have to use ray tracing to make your game. The GPU supports primitive shading.
The neck of the guy on the far left, he's just very upright.
Without making any use of it. Before I get into the capabilities of the GPU,
Oh,
I'd like
please.
to make clear 2 points that can be quite confusing.
Before you,
First, we have a custom AMD GPU based on their RDNA 2 technology.
right?
What
So this is the same thing as the
AMD is
Xbox. It's a
continuously
custom AMD.
revising their tech For RDNA 2, their goals were, roughly speaking, to reduce power consumption by re-architecting the GPU to put
I'm wondering if AMD is like, we're making custom for both consoles, and then they go,
and to adding new, more advanced features.
write a number on the end of the other one.
That
PlayStation
feature set
1,
is malleable,
Xbox One.
which is
It's
to say
custom.
We have our own needs for PlayStation, and that can factor into what the AMD roadmap becomes.
Yeah, the
So,
ray tracing is at this. I
collaboration
guarantee you they're going to do the same thing.
between
This is going to be the
concepts
same
AMD that
chip,
are
but
thought to be widely
slightly
useful, then they can be
customized for
adopted
Sony.
into RDNA 2 and used broadly, including in PC.
Because there's no way that
Ideas
AMD
are
isn't going to
specific
please
to what we want to
Microsoft,
accomplish, like the GPU cache scrubbers I was talking about.
you know,
Then they end up
as
being
equally as
just
Sony.
for us. If you see a similar discrete GPU available as a PC card at roughly the same time as we release our console, that means our collaboration with AMD succeeded in producing technology useful in both worlds. It doesn't mean that we as Sony simply incorporated the PC part into our console. This continuous improvement in AMD technology means it's dangerous to rely on
Flop! Here we go.
What?
Someone screenshot that. RDN2 flop does not equal PS4 flop.
PlayStation 5 each have 8 CPUs, but we never think that meant the capabilities and performance are equal. It's the same for CUs. For one thing, they've been getting much larger over time. Adding new features means adding lots of transistors. In fact, the transistor count for a PlayStation 5 CU is 62% larger than the transistor count for a PlayStation 4.
62%? All right, transistors.
Second, the PlayStation 5 GPU is backwards compatible with PlayStation 4. What does that mean? One way you can achieve backwards compatibility is to put the previous
I don't know, man.
console's chipset.
New is new and not old. That's right, Brian.
PlayStation 3s, but that's of course extremely expensive. A better way is to incorporate any differences in the previous console's logic into the new console's custom chips, meaning that even as the technology evolves, the logic and feature set that PlayStation
Legacy mode,
4
right,
and PlayStation
right,
4
right.
titles rely on is still available in backwards compatibility modes. One advantage of this strategy is that once backwards compatibility is in the console, it's in. It's not as if a cost down will remove backwards compatibility like it did on PlayStation 3.
This is something that I've been talking
Achieving
about.
this
Like, the system is
unification
literally
functionality
just a
took
step up,
years
step
of
up,
efforts
step
by
up.
AMD, as any roadmap advancement creates a potential divergence in logic. Running PS4 and PS4 titles at boosted frequencies has also added complexity. The boost is truly massive this time around, and some game code just can't handle it. Testing has to be done on a title-by-title basis. Results are excellent, though.
Right, on boosted mode. But if you run this under, yeah, Jordan, Digital Foundry is going to be way better at this, for sure.
With regards to new
But
features,
notice,
as I said,
they
our
still didn't
strategy
show
is
us anything else.
groundbreaking
They didn't show us
but
PS2.
at the same time,
I get the
leveraging
PS3 is hard
requirements of the new
to
GPU
emulate. I mean,
For more than a decade, GPUs have imposed a restriction on game engines. Software handles vertex processing, but for the most part, dedicated hardware is responsible for the triangles and other geometry that the vertices form.
Oof,
that means
boy.
it's not possible to do even basic optimizations, such as aborting processing of a vertex if all geometry that uses it is off-screen. PlayStation 5 has a new unit called the Geometry Engine, which brings
Geometry
a
Engine!
of triangles and other
Is this it?
primitives
Is this our Sony
As a game
word?
developer, you're free to ignore its existence and use the PlayStation 5 GPU as if it were
We had a
a
motion engine, now we have Geometry Engine.
GPU, or you can use this new intelligence in various ways. Simple usage could be performance optimization, such as removing backface or off-screen vertices and triangles. More complex usage involves something called primitive shaders, which allow the game
I like how they
to
made sure that that was on the
synthesize
back of the
geometry
brain,
on the
'cause it's
fly
primitive.
as it's being rendered. It's a brand new capability.
Will it have scrubbers?
Using
I don't know,
primitive
man.
Shaders on PlayStation 5 will allow for a broad variety of techniques, including smoothly varying level of detail, addition of procedural detail.
This is showing me
to
such great
objects, and
things, like these
improvements to hardware effects and other
vertex
visual
graphics,
effects.
vector graphics on
Another
this PowerPoint
major
are
new
really.
feature of
Oh,
our
ray tracing. Here we go.
RDNA 2-based GPU is ray tracing, using the same strategy as AMD's upcoming PC GPUs. The CUs contain a new specialized unit called the intersection engine, which can calculate the
Intersection
range
engine,
of
okay.
boxes and triangles.
Mini engines.
To use the intersection engine, first you build what is called an acceleration structure. It's data in RAM that contains
Oh my
all of the
god,
geometry.
this
There's a
Venn
specific set of
diagram right
formats
here.
you can use. They're variations on the same BVH concept. Then, in your shader program, you use a new instruction that asks the intersection engine to
Jordan,
check a
that's
ring
perfect.
against the BVH. While the intersection engine is processing the requested ray triangle or ray box intersection,
Pedro, I knew this was gonna be one of them. You saw this picture, like, what the F? Where does it intersect?
With logic-heavy code. There's of course no need to use ray tracing. PS4 graphics engines
No
will
need.
run just fine on PlayStation 5.
Oh.
But it presents an opportunity for those interested. I'm thinking it'll take less than 1 million rays a second to have a big impact on audio. That should be enough for audio occlusion and some reverb calculations. With a bit more of the GPU invested in ray tracing, it should be possible to do some very nice global illumination. Having said that, adding ray-traced shadows and reflections to a traditional graphics engine could easily take hundreds of millions of rays a second, and full ray tracing could take billions. How far can we go? I'm starting to get quite bullish. I've already
trillion.
seen a PlayStation 5 title that's successfully using ray tracing-based reflections in complex animated scenes with only modest cost.
Oh, he's already seen this.
Another
No one
set
else
of
has.
issues for the GPU involved size and frequency. How big do we make the GPU?
We
and
still
what
got
is
that
the
fast.
frequency?
Yo, dog, I heard
This
you
is a
like
balance
engines, and we
beam.
put
It should
geometry
have
engines in your
constant
intersection
cost for
engines so you
whatever
can
we
ray
use to
trace
supply
while
that chip
vertex
power
shading.
and to
Bravo.
In general, I like running the GPU at higher frequency. Let me show you why.
Because it goes faster?
Here's two possible configurations for a GPU roughly of the level of the PlayStation 4 Pro. This is a thought experiment. Don't take these configurations too seriously.
Don't.
If you just calculate teraflops, you get the same number. But actually, the performance is noticeably different because teraflops is defined as the computational capability of the vector ALU. That's just one part of the GPU. There are a lot of other units. And those other units all run faster when the GPU
Is this them trying to
is higher.
dismiss the teraflop?
33% higher frequency, rasterization goes 33% faster.
I-
Processing the command buffer goes that much faster. The L2 and other caches have that much higher bandwidth, and so on. About the only downside of system memory is 33% further away in terms of cycles. But the large number of benefits more than
Scott,
outweigh.
yeah.
As a friend of mine says, a rising tide lifts all boats. Also, it's easier to fully use 36 CUs in parallel than it is to fully use 48 CUs. When triangles are
32
small,
is
it's
easier
much
than
harder to
48,
fill all
guys.
those CUs with useful
So
work.
many CUs.
So there's a lot to be said for faster, assuming you can handle the resulting power and heat issues, which frankly, we haven't always done the best job at. Part of the reason for that is, historically, our process for setting CPU and GPU frequencies has relied on some heavy-duty guesswork with regards to how much
Shit runs
electric
hot,
power
yo.
will be consumed and how much heat will be produced as a result inside of the console.
Oh, that axe. I love the axe. The highest power is the axe.
When I play God of War on my PS4 Pro, I know the power consumption is high just by the fan noise.
Not a power tool, but a hand axe.
Quality. It's about the minutia of what's being displayed and how. It's counterintuitive, but processing dense geometry typically consumes less power than processing simple geometry, which is, I suspect, why Horizon's map screen, with its low triangle count, makes my PS4 Pro heat up so much. Our process on previous consoles has
I
been to
don't-
try to guess the maximum power consumption during the entire console lifetime.
That's exactly it. Car,
Worst case scene, in
biohazard revolver bow axe.
we think
I need
we could find
screenshots of this entire thing.
If we get it right, fan noise is minimal. If we get it wrong, the console will be quite loud, and there's even a chance that it might overheat and shut down if we misestimate power.
A highest power
PlayStation
performance
5 is
axe.
especially challenging because the CPU supports 256-bit native instructions that consume a lot of power. These are great here and there, but presumably only minimally used. Or are they? If we plan for
Or are they?
256-bit instruction usage, we need to set the CPU clock substantially lower or noticeably increase the size of the power. So, after
Who is the guy that made these slides? And he was like, I need a graphic that shows high power consumption. Axe.
36 CUs. Mind you, RDNA RDNA2 CUs are large. Each has 62% more transistors than the CUs we were using on PlayStation 4. So if we compare transistor counts, 36 RDNA2 CUs equates to roughly 58 PlayStation 4 CUs. It is a fairly sizable GPU. Then we went with a variable frequency strategy for PlayStation 5, which is to say we continuously run the GPU and CPU in boost mode.
So this is something that Xbox is doing too. This is the little bits and pieces that I've caught is Xbox will do boost mode all the time. So this might be just how the AMD CPU works, or the GPU works.
We run at essentially constant power and let the frequency.
Scott, this is exactly it. I was talking to Pedro over chat on Monday. I was like, Microsoft just dropped the bomb. Sony's got to respond. And on Tuesday, yesterday, they were like, we've got a talk happening tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, this is the talk. You're right, 3 a.m. They were like, axe, power consumption.
I think you'll be quite happy with what the engineering team came up with.
God.
So, how fast can we run the GPU and CPU with this?
Here we go. How fast?
The simplest approach would be to look at the actual temperature of the
silicon. Oh, the simplest approach.
Throttle the frequency on that basis.
Temperature.
But that won't work. It fails to create a consistent PlayStation 5 experience. It wouldn't do to run a console slower simply because it was in a hot room. So rather than look at the actual temperature of the silicon die, we look at the activities that the GPU and CPU are performing. And
dude, the spacing on this is driving me crazy. Things aren't lining up here. Look at the space between GPU and CPU against the walls here. Look at this, right here. This versus this. It's driving me crazy here.
The benefits of this strategy are quite large. Running a GPU at 2 gigahertz was looking like an unreachable target with the old fixed frequency strategy. With this new paradigm, we're able to run way over that. In fact, we have to cap the GPU frequency at 2.23 gigahertz.
It's capped.
So that we can guarantee that the on-chip.
Someone pull up those Xbox numbers. 2.23 is the capped GPU.
CUs at 2.23 gigahertz.
10.3 teraflops. That's the number.
We expect the GPU to spend most of its time at or close to that frequency and performance.
Okay, can someone pull up the numbers? Because that's it. 2.23 gigahertz at 10.3 teraflops. What did Xbox give us?
Now we can run it as high as 3.5
oh,
gigahertz.
okay, CPU is capped at 3.5.
Of its time at that frequency. That doesn't mean all games will be running at 2.23 gigahertz.
So those are the speeds, guys.
When that worst case,
can someone pull them up?
Will run at a lower clock speed, but not too much. To reduce power by 10%, it only takes a couple of percent reduction in frequency. So I'd expect any downclocking to be pretty minor.
Okay, so Series X specs are 3.8
will show significant for PlayStation.
Teraflop. Oh, 12 teraflops.
First three principles was about finding new dreams. It's important for us on the hardware.
Oh my God, this is gonna 52 CU's custom RDN2, 16. Yeah, so yeah, CPU is capped at 3.5 for the Sony PlayStation 5, but the Xbox Series X is 3.8. GPU is 12 teraflops versus 10.3 teraflops of Sony. So that's it. Those are the numbers. Those are the numbers that are going to get memed because
at the same time, the audio team on a game project has
he can talk and explain to me how things work for the rest of the time, but people are going to jump on those numbers. And those are the numbers, folks. 3.5 gigahertz CPU capped, 2.23 GPU, and 10.3 teraflops. While the specs on the Xbox One that were announced 2 days ago are 3.8.
So it's been tough
12 teraflops.
Progress on audio with PlayStation 4, particularly when PlayStation 3 was such a beast when it came to audio. The SPUs and Cell were almost a perfect device for audio.
Oh my God.
Simple pipelined algorithms could really take advantage of asynchronous DMA and frequently reached 100% utilization of the floating point unit.
Oh my God,
There's unfortunately nothing comparable on PlayStation 4. Probably the most dramatic progress in the PlayStation 4 generation has been with virtual reality. The PSVR hardware has its own audio unit. It supports about 50 pretty decent 3D sound sources. And this provided
right, 3.8 for the CPU. The GPU is capped at 2.23. I haven't pulled up the specs on what the Xbox is.
Here were our goals for audio on PlayStation
At 1.825
The
gigahertz.
first
Okay,
goal
so
was great audio
GPU might be
for
running a little
everyone,
faster
not
there.
just VR
But more
users,
teraflops, yo.
mobile owners, or
I
headphone
don't know.
users. That meant audio had to be part of the console. It couldn't be a peripheral. The second goal was to support hundreds of sound sources. We didn't want developers
Audio.
to have to pick and choose.
Yes, guys,
What
audio
sounds
has to
fit
be built
the
into the
text
console,
and
not a
the
separate
tunes.
peripheral.
We wanted every sound in the game to have dimensionality. And finally, we wanted to really take on the challenges of presence
Numbers mean nothing,
and locality.
but the numbers
Now,
are what the
when we
media is
say
going to jump on,
presence,
and the
we mean
fanboys are going to jump
feeling
on.
that you're actually there. You've entered the matrix. It's not, of course, something we thought we could perfectly achieve.
Oh
The
my
idea
God, they
was that
used
it
the
stopped
Matrix
using
reference.
just a rain sound, and instead used lots of 3D audio sources for raindrops hitting the ground at all sorts of locations around you.
Did you just
And
see
at
that,
some
guys?
point, your brain would
This
take
is
it
1999
and
all
have
over
this
again.
feeling. This feeling of
We've
real
entered the
presence
Matrix.
inside the virtual world of the game. This has the capacity to affect your appreciation of the game.
I don't know about that,
just
Jordan.
like music in a game does.
Audio's been a big deal, but they've always given it to people like
It's
Dolby.
just your
So
sense
like
of
Dolby
presence
Atmos is supported on the Xbox One
Right
X
of you,
or
behind
the
you,
Xbox One period. So
This can
Dolby's
immerse
always
you
been
in
kind of, they just
the
go,
game.
hey,
It can
here's
also
the industry
directly
standard for audio.
enhance the game.
What are they
use
telling me
Dead
here? That
Space as an
they've
example,
re-engineered a
old
whole
school.
new
You're fighting enemies in fairly dark
audio
spatial
like
locations.
engine? What's going
Back in
on?
the day, if you played the game using the TV speakers, you could tell that there was one last enemy growling and hunting you down, but it was difficult to tell quite where that enemy was. With headphones, you could tell that the enemy was somewhere on the right, which let you deduce, if you couldn't see it, that it
Most
was
people have
somewhere
pants audio
behind
setups.
and to your
I know.
But with 3D audio,
They're,
with good
what's
sound,
fantastic about this is they're like audio. Most players nowadays, especially people that are playing, are popping on headphones.
So, how do we know where a sound is coming from in the first place? Well, all those bumps and folds in the ear have a meaning, evolutionarily speaking.
Oh my God, he's going to explain how ears work, guys.
Sound waves bounce around inside the ear, there's some constructive and destructive interference, and the result is a change in volume. The phase of the sound also shifts, depending on what path the sound wave took to reach the ear canal. These volume changes and phase shifts are different for each direction and also vary depending on the frequency of the sound. Head size and head shape also impact the sound in a similar fashion. The way that the sound changes, based on direction and frequency, can be encoded in a table called the Head-Related Transfer Function, or HRTF. Here's part of one. The vertical axis is the frequency, the horizontal axis is the direction, front, back, left, right, and the color gives the degree of attenuation of the sound at that frequency. The HRTF is as unique to an individual as a fingerprint is. In fact, you're looking at mine right now. Here's how we measure an HRTF. We've taken hundreds of people through this process. We put a microphone in the subject's left and right ear canals, and then sit the subject down in the middle
Oh my God.
of 20 speakers. We then play an audio sweep from each speaker as we rotate.
This is PlayStation 5 right here. Someone photoshopped this into that South Park machine where they drive around. They put it in their mouth.
But it's computationally expensive. The simplest way to use an HRTF is to process a sound.
I can't even with this.
One of those 1,000 locations. Unfortunately, the processing has to be done in frequency domain rather than time domain, so there's multiple fast radio transport.
Jordan, I'm dying.
That's a lot of multiplies. This computational complexity was the determining factor for our strategy. It meant we would bite the bullet and design and build a custom hardware unit for 3D audio. Collectively, we're referring to the hardware unit and the proprietary algorithms
Proprietary.
we known it as Tempest 3D.
Tempest 3D.
Tech. The meaning of 3D audio and technology should be pretty obvious here. As for Tempest, I feel it really reflects our goals with audio. It suggests a certain intensity of experience and also hints at your presence.
Tempest Audio, that's
We're calling
proprietary.
the hardware unit that we built the Tempest engine. It's based on AMD's GPU technology. We modified a compute unit in such a way as to make it very close to the SPUs in PlayStation 3. Remember when I said that they were ideal for audio?
I don't remember,
the Tempest
but
engine
go
has
on.
no caches, just like an SPU. All data access is via DMA, just like an SPU. Our target was that it would have more power than a CPU, thanks to the parallelism that a GPU can achieve, and that it would be more efficient than our GPU, thanks to the SPU-like architecture. The goal being to make possible near 100% utilization of the CU's vector units. Where we ended up is a unit with roughly the same SIMD power and bandwidth as all 8 Jaguar cores in the PlayStation 4 combined. If we were to use the
Atari Jaguar confirmed.
PSVR, that's enough for something like 5,000 sound sources. But of course, we want to use more complex algorithms, and we don't need anything like
Do you think Microsoft is sitting here watching this going,
it would have been wonderful
yeah,
if a simpler
that's what sound does?
using Dolby Atmos peripherals could have achieved our goals, but we wanted 3D audio for all, not just those with
So they wanted to go above Dolby Atmos.
Also, we wanted many
They wanted to
hundreds of
reinvent the wheel.
sound sources, not just the 32 that Atmos supports. And finally, we wanted
Because
to be
people
able
are
to
still
throw
going to be using
overwhelming
$15 headphones
processing
plugged into
power
their
on top
controller
of it,
over
and it wasn't
Bluetooth
clear what
audio.
the peripheral might have inside of it.
What are you doing?
The Tempest engine, we've even got enough power that we can allocate some to the games, to the extent that
So
games want
my
to
home
use
theater
optical
Atmos
resolution
setup won't
Other
be able to
algorithms
play
that are
this.
either
So what
computationally expensive
hardware
or
can I listen to these
But the
magical new
primary
sound
purpose
channels
of
that
the
you're
Tempest
creating?
engine remains 3D audio. Now, 3D audio is a major academic research topic. It's safe to say that no one in the world has all of the answers. And the set of algorithms that has to be invented
Thank you, Jordan.
to realize our vision
This could have been an email.
For example, use of HRTFs in games is quite complex. Before, I talked about making a sound source appear as if it's coming from one of those 1,000 HRTF sample locations. But for high-quality 3D games,
Oh my god.
we have to
This.
handle other possibilities. The sound source might not be at one of the 1,000 HRTF sample locations, so we have to blend the HRTF data from the closest locations that we have sampled. The sound source might be moving, which needs very special handling as that blend keeps changing, and that can cause phase artifacts in the resulting audio. Or the sound source might be silent, it should feel as if it's coming from an area rather than a single point. There's also whole categories of approaches to be handled. 3D audio can be implemented using individual processors and 3D sound sources. But alternatively, ambisonics can be used for 3D audio. Ambisonics speak somewhat like the spherical harmonics used in computer graphics. And finally, there's audio devices. The player might be using headphones or TV speakers or have a higher-end surround sound setup with 6 or more speakers, all of which need different approaches.
Throw that all out the
That's
window.
A lot of variations. It's nice to have the computational resources of the Tempest engine, but it's clear that achieving our ultimate goals with 3D audio is going to be a multi-year, step-by-step process.
Oh, so it's the
Having
future.
said that, headphone audio implementation is largely complete at this time. It was a natural place for us to start. With headphones, we control exactly what each ear hears, and therefore the algorithmic development and implementation.
Jesus.
For TV speakers and stereo speakers, we're in the process of implementing virtual surround sound. The idea being that if you're sitting in a sweet spot in
We've
front of the TV, then the sound
had
can be
this.
made to feel as if it's coming from any direction, even behind you.
Oh my god.
Virtual surround sound has a lot in common with 3D audio on headphones, but
This
it's more complex
image.
because the left ear can hear the right speaker and vice versa. We have a basic implementation of virtual surround sound up and running. We're now looking at increasing the size of that.
They
sweet
just
spot,
got this.
which
Apparently
is to
they've
say,
never had this
making
before.
The area you need to be in to feel the 3D effect larger, and we're also working to boost the sense of locality. Headphone audio is the current gold standard for 3D audio on PlayStation 5, but we're going to see what we can do to bring virtual surround sound to a similar level, after which we'll start in on setups with more speakers, such as 6-channel surround sound. It's now to the point where some of the PlayStation 5 games in development are extensively using these systems. One of the game demos allows you to toggle between conventional PlayStation 4 style stereo audio and our new 3D audio. I listened with just an ordinary pair of over-the-ear headphones, and wow, I could feel a difference. 3D audio has that dimensional feel to it. Conventional stereo audio feels smashed flat by comparison. So,
Roll's great. Yeah, the
Have I
college kid
entered
that sells
the mix?
TVs at
Does
Best
my
Buy
brain
understand
believe
this.
I'm really
Yeah.
there? Like I was talking about earlier when I explained.
This is how they upsell you on that
Well,
new
The
Samsung.
answer is no, but you've probably caught on to what's missing.
Cerny
namely,
are-
who HRTF was
He's
being
got his own
It wasn't
spectrum.
mine. It was the default HRTF. The audio team analyzed the hundreds that they measured and chose the one they felt was the closest fit to the total game playing audience. This shows a piece of the default HRTF on the left and my HRTF on the right. You can see that the general features are much the same, but the details are quite different. With the default HRTF, as I said, the 3D audio sounds pretty great. When I use my HRTF, though, the audio reaches a higher level of
He's way higher, guys. He's ascended.
when using headphones and my HRTF,
His HRTF is way higher.
The sound is coming from the real world when it's actually coming
From the Matrix.
A corollary to this is that there are a few people whose HRTFs are sufficiently far.
Is this him telling him that he's far
That's the
superior?
red dot here, that they can toggle between PS4
You are
5
default.
audio and not sense much difference. I've had a few people describe the PlayStation 5's 3D audio as sounding like a bit better stereo audio. Presumably, they're the ones at the very edges of this diagram. Which means what HRTF you're using is key. I'd like everyone to be able to experience what I'm experiencing, but obviously it's not possible to measure the HRTF of every PlayStation user. That means HRTF selection and synthesis are going to be big topics going forward as the Tempest technology
Huge.
matures.
We're going to be
At
talking about
PlayStation
this for
5
years.
launch, We'll be offering a choice of 5 HRTFs. There's a simple test where you pick the one that gives you the best locality. That's just the first step, though. This is an open-ended research topic. Maybe you'll be sending us a photo of your ear, and we'll choose a neural network to pick the closest HRTF in our library. Maybe you'll be sending us a video of your ears and your head, and we'll make a 3D model of them and synthesize the HRTF. Maybe you'll play an audio game to tune your HRTF.
Sony, can I change my screen name on PSN?
And hone
Yeah.
in on the
Can I do that?
HRTF gives you the
Is that not
highest
something I can do?
quality
It's too
image that
complicated?
matches you
Okay,
the
but
best.
you want me
This
to
is a
scan my
journey
ear
we'll all
and
be
send it to
taking
you.
together over the next
Fair
few
enough.
years.
I don't
Ultimately, we're
even
committed
understand
to
what's
enabling
going on.
Everyone to experience that next level of realism. Hopefully, I've been able to illustrate a bit about our design and decision-making process today, and why PlayStation 5 has the feature set that it does.
I'm
Now,
sold, guys.
we get to see how the development community takes advantage of that feature set. I'm hoping for the completely unexpected. Will it come from audio, ray tracing, the capabilities of the SSD, or something else? I guess we'll find out soon enough. Thank you for your time today.
Please tell me that was it. Oh my God. I don't... Holy crap. What was that? What was that? I don't... I don't even... That was it, Doug. That was it. That was exactly what Sony gave us. I can't even comprehend the decision making behind this. That might be the worst thing they could have done, is put Mark Cerny in front of a camera to talk to you about the technicalities of the system from a developer standpoint, and not show the console and not have a clear slide with all the specs. This is absolutely a ginormous mess. What is happening? Feels like this is their plan. They really shouldn't have just tweeted out the time. Wow. But I welcome the memes. The memes shall be glorious. They shall be glorious. I'm speechless. I cannot wait for the screenshots and and the replacement text, it's going to be so good. Absolutely so good. Doug, you're right. They're showing everything to the developers, but this is Sony's hubris talking. I think I've mentioned this multiple times. Sony is back on PlayStation 2 hubris. We cannot do no wrong. Everyone is going to follow suit. Everyone's going to keep us. We've got the better single player games. We've got Last of Us. We've got God of War. Here is our specs. Here is how smart we are. We're going to sound like we're the smarter console in the room. That's it. They're basically sipping tea while Xbox is slamming down Monster Energy drink. Like, that's kind of the way I see it. But at the same time, Microsoft came out swinging and said, these are our specs. This is what we have. By the way, here's our service. Here's Xbox Game Pass with all of our games. Everything's backwards compatible. Sony was like, here's a bunch of techno mumbo jumbo for the developers. Here's our audio tech that we're going to talk to you about for 15 minutes that has no bearing whatsoever because none of your consumer hardware can hear it, where only headphones can, and that's mainly what we're focused on anyway. Maybe in the future we'll allow you to map your ear. Like, I don't understand none of that told me anything. The numbers that they put on screen showed that it was a little slower than a Xbox, except maybe the GPU, but I haven't confirmed any of that. Like, it just looks like Microsoft had their crap together and showed tech demos to the public. But here they're not showing anything. They haven't showed anything. This is amazing. I can't even. Yeah, Microsoft, good job. GG. Sony, I don't. This is like you're told that you have a book report due the next day and you haven't read the book. So then you read the cliff notes before and then you write something down and then you go up in front of the class and then use a bunch of big words to kind of fill up, fill the time. And so you can still get the grade for participation, knowing that you're going to walk away with like a D because the teacher goes, you didn't read this, but I'm going to give you a passing grade. This is what Sony did. This is exactly what Sony did. I'm not saying that they don't have a great system. I'm not saying that they don't have their stuff together, but you can't present this to the public and not expect the backlash. This is going to get publicly backlashed. I can't wait. Maybe we'll have an impromptu Mid-Geek before the end of the week. Maybe Pedro, come on board sometime for this week. We can spend 30 minutes talking about ear canals and the Matrix, because that's what you're in now. I don't even understand. I can't even believe that he used the Matrix reference. And then the only animation in that entire PowerPoint was literally the PlayStation symbols coming down like the Matrix. That was it. I can't even. Thank you, Sony. Thank you for the memes. Guys, I'll catch you soon.